Hi, everyone. My name is Eleni. I am the executive producer of Where Brains Meet Beauty podcast, and I'm so happy to welcome all of you to our third virtual event, Overcoming Self-Doubt. So today's event was put together with our current environment in mind, and also because it's our host Jody's passion topic to talk about, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that. But our panelists and our podcast guests will walk us through some tips and some best practices on how we can sort of overcome our self-doubt, especially during these especially anxious times. So the event will be just about 20 minutes, and we'll have an opportunity to answer some questions at the end. So where you see at the bottom of your screen, there's a little Q&A button, and you can type your questions in there, and we will have a chance to ask them to the panelists afterwards. So with that, I will pass it over to our host of the podcast, Jody, and she'll do some introductions.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. This is so exciting because this is one of my favorite topics. I'm so excited to introduce our panelists. So Tina Hedges, give us a little wave, Tina. Okay, that's Tina. She's the founder of Armani Beauty. You can hear her podcast episode. It's number 106. So you can go to our website for that. And I just wanted to note that the LinkedIn article about her episode received the most engagement of any other because she talked openly about ageism, which is, I think, one of her favorite topics. So you can listen to that episode. Now, Lisa Price. Give us a little wave, Lisa.
Hi.
She's the founder of Carol's Daughter. Lisa's episode is number 87. And I am a super fan of Lisa's Instagram feed. It's like a little bit of free therapy for me in my day. She's like the voice of reason when I get stuck in my head. So it's like the universe serves up that feed to me when I need it most, Lisa. There's Tim Quinn. Give a little shout out, Tim. There he is. All the way from Boca, Florida. So he is the celebrity face designer of Armani Beauty. And Tim's episode is number 35. Tim, you were there for me in the beginning, number 35. That's a long time ago.
Wow.
And on his episode, Tim speaks so openly about challenging health event that made him rethink his whole purpose. That's a really beautiful episode to listen to. So thank you all for joining. We're here on the topic of self-doubt. And it's something that through the help of decades of therapy and working with coaches, I've been able to kind of like shrink down into this like little package that I stuck in my freezer, like the basement freezer, not the everyday freezer. And I was really moving through the world fine, like knowing it was there, but it wasn't infecting me every day until COVID hit. And I've been like kind of back in my head, stuck there, consumed and obsessed, second guessing myself, doubting myself, suffering with perfectionism, which I see as part of my self-doubt disease, and working through it now with talk therapy, with my coach, but it's been hard. I like really kind of went back to all my old stuff, my old garbage. And I'm really so curious about how our panelists, how they have tips on managing self-doubt and these perfectionism tendencies to help move us into a better headspace. So we'll go one by one. I'm going to start with Tina. Tina, what I want to know from you is what does self-doubt or your management of self-doubt look like before COVID? And then has it seeped into your thinking during COVID? And what are your tips for managing it?
I think when I look it's hard to say where did COVID begin because it all sort of starts to blend somewhere in January, February, the beginnings of what was going to come to pass started. But if I look 2019, like the second half of 2019, which was super challenging for me. I was out fundraising and again encountered a lot of what you and I discussed on our podcast together of ageism and not fitting the mold of the little millennial cute, startup founder prototype. And to me, if I look and think about self-doubt in that moment and through the rest of the second half of last year, for me, it was not what I was, it was what I felt I wasn't. And self-doubt really started there for me. I was constantly comparing myself to what I wasn't or what Loli wasn't. And that was eroding where I was. And I think what's really interesting about COVID and the sort of effects of COVID is I start every conversation now with the positives, right? I start when we talk to somebody, whether, it's an investor or it's a customer, it's always coming from a place of like, we have our health. Our family has our health. We have our friends. We We have a business. I'm so excited to have something to hustle for every day. I mean, I'm full of fear. I don't know if my company will survive, but I'm hustling every day. And so that self-doubt has flipped itself on its head. And I'm starting now, not from a place of what we aren't or what I am not. It's more like, hey, what do I have today in my basket? So that's sort of interesting to me, you know, how it's actually had a positive effect.
Have you actually made a practice of like writing a gratitude list every morning, or is it like, you know, is there something, a pen beside your bed at night? What is your process for getting there every day?
Well, I do try, and I'm not perfect at it by any means, but I do try to meditate every day, at least for like 5 or 10 minutes. And in that meditation, I do a blessing. I really believe in the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, where you envision whether it's people that you've had issues with, or it's people you love, you go one by one, or situations, and you say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you envelop them in that light, and you sort of keep that mantra going on that person or that issue until you feel no tug. And that in itself is a gratitude prayer, right? Because you're acknowledging where you are in life vis-a-vis other people, and it's very liberating.
You know, Tina, after this session is over, Elaine will email all the attendees. It'd be great if you can type out that prayer for her, and she'll include it in the email.
Sure, I will.
So, Lisa, tell me if your Instagram feed is going to help me manage my self-doubt.
Well, you know, what I've been trying to do actually on my Instagram is to be as honest as possible. You know, this is something that none of us have ever gone through before. So there should be no expectation of executing it perfectly, handling it well, managing it great every day. We can't, because it's never happened to any of us before. We can't go back to our moms or our aunts or our fathers and say, what did you do when you had a global pandemic? So we're all learning it, and we're all navigating it at the same time. So I think exercising grace as much as possible is really key. What I found interesting for myself is I built my business in my home for many years. So I worked from home from 1993 until about 2006. And in 2006, I started going to an office and going to work, and I began to have a separation of church and state. So when this first happened, I really thought, well, you know, you could do this, just go back to how it used to be. You'll have your, you know, office set up, you got your laptop, and, you know, now there's more technology, so it'll be even easier. Oh, this will be a breeze. It was the hardest thing ever. The first couple of weeks, I was just kind of like, wait, where's work? Where's home? Oh, wait, there's school. Oh, I have to cook. Wait, stop. You know, it felt like everything was coming from everywhere. And I had to give myself a break. I had to forgive myself. I had to write things down, you know, delegate the time. Remember that I have to stop and go to the bathroom, and I have to, you know, do this. So you can't be scheduled back to back. I have no makeup artist. So when I do things like this, I got to figure out the concealer and the highlighter myself. So I need a little extra time. To me, when the doubt creeps in, or the insecurity, or, you know, why can't you keep the schedule right? Why were you late to that meeting? Why did you get up late? And I just have to go back to, because I've never done this before. I've never done this before. And I try to share that on Instagram, because I think we think everyone else has it figured out, and I'm the only idiot. And I'm here to say, you're not the only idiot.
So Lisa, I want to talk about this idea. You called it grace. I think of it as like kindness to myself. Like, how do I start to be kinder to myself and like give myself a break, right? I'm like so ambitious and like, you know, usually like hard charging, but I'm not so great at like giving myself a little room?
Well, I started to write things down in a planner pre-COVID. Just writing, even though my schedule is in the computer, but usually the schedule in the computer is all of the work meetings, and it may not have the other things that I need to do. And so I started to take a planner, transfer the information from the computer about work into the planner, but then I began to write down things for myself. And for some people, electronic is better. For me, writing it is better. And it's part of my morning. And it'll have little things in it, like, remembering a phone call to make, remembering a bill that has to be paid, following up on something, sending someone an email. And what I found that does now during the time of COVID is I'm looking at it on paper and I'm like, when are you going to have lunch? When can you go to the bathroom? Like it does, you can see right in front of you that it doesn't make sense. So then I can go into it and make adjustments at the top of the day, move things around so that I give myself room and spaces to breathe throughout the day. Because it's one thing when you're at work and you push yourself all day and maybe you end up taking a lunch at 3 o'clock and you have that moment to breathe. But when you're at home, when you go take that lunch break at 3 o'clock, you might have to fold laundry also, or you might have to help somebody with homework, or you might have to sweep the floor or something else is going to interfere. So trying to remember that you need a few more pauses in the day because it's different, because everything is together and everything is in one place.
Right. Yeah, that's super helpful because there are little people in my house. They're not so little. They're medium-sized people in my house. And, I do actually like hanging out with them. So Tim, take us on the journey that's in your head right now. You're used to flying around the world, doing makeup artistry on some of the most famous people in the world. How is your mindset?
All that's not so important anymore.
Well, that's so interesting, Tim, because that's what you said on the podcast, right? If I can back up in time when you were at a health crisis, you said, is this important anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it's important when it is, but when it's not, it can't be. I mean, I've been literally sitting here taking notes from both Lisa and Tina because it's so odd. I love, this is what I miss the most. So I talk in circles, you know that. Like, of course, when this all happened, to everyone's point, like, nobody saw it coming unless you just watched Oprah from 2006, and that doctor did. But my life just stopped, and then all of a sudden I'm home, and all that stuff starts creeping in, of course, because I'm so used to being busy. And I actually consider this to be like and people who know me on Instagram and all that know that, to me, I've taken it as such a huge blessing because I have my mom, who normally I have aides here with, so I'm spending all this time with her, like, and she's listening. We have so much fun. So she's become my muse, my model, my sounding board, my whatever. And she's always been kind of my like go-to for strength. Like when I start to doubt, it's the woman who's had 7 children, lost 3 of them, like all this crazy stuff. And like when you can't allow yourself, I find, to get too caught up in it. Like I'll give myself like a few minutes when I start to have those crazy thoughts start creeping in, and I get out my little clearing spray, whatever. I think it's important to have some kind of spiritual grounding. I mean, I was brought up Catholic, so I kind of lean on that when I can. As a person who's so used to being out and in the public, all I know is I thank God for technology, because I get my grounding, my energy, my self-confidence from my interaction with people. And when all of a sudden you don't have anybody except, I'm so happy to see like the mailman walk down the street, it's like, wow. So I do that. Like I reach out, I literally go through my phone and I look and I think of like the people I haven't talked to in a while, family members, I'll see a picture over there. I'm like, oh my God, let me check on them. And then it takes you out of your head because all of a sudden you know that the person who you're speaking to maybe has a different experience to both of your points. Like I had this conversation yesterday with a dear friend, I think who's on, Marla, and she said she read something about, we're all in this together, except we're all in different ships. And, it's very easy to get caught up in, oh, look at the life they're living during this. That's what made me, pay attention, Lisa. Well, I don't know how to do this right. You know what I rented yesterday? Tea with Mussolini. Because in my head, those women went through that time in Florence, you know, Cher's in it, so of course it's good. But I wanted to see how they managed things. And that's what I always do. I go back into like historical things or movies and I look and see, not necessarily how to do it right, but how to keep living in it while you're going through it. So then, you know, we're going to be through this at some point, and you want to have those great moments to enjoy.
So you seem pretty relaxed about this, considering out of everyone on this call right now, you're the one who actually can't really work, right? Like Lisa's working, working, my team's working. Like you actually can't touch base right now.
I mean, all my work now is on this, you know, like team calls, Zoom calls, trying to reimagine how business is going to look when, you know, whatever retailers reopen, because I still do all the personal appearances too. You know, interfacing with clients. We've been doing like client calls on through this, not as a selling experience, but more just to like, I mean, these are my friends of 20 years. I'm so used to seeing them in Dallas and LA and Chicago, you know, it's like, it's a great way just to keep that all going. Of course, I miss like some of the other stuff, but I've got my Muse. I dress her up like.
Does your mom let you share pictures of her in your looks on social?
Oh yeah, she's been on my Instagram live where I've remade her. Like I felt the other Friday night, I felt it important that we dress up, even though we're not going anywhere. So I made her much more glamorous with jewelry out, whatever, because I think that I've had so many calls where all people want to know is like, well, how do I look good for a Zoom call? But like, you know, maybe you're home with your husband who's sick of looking at you, or your wife, or your girlfriend, or your partner, whatever. Like, you know, we can't forget what it is to like, I mean, I break out the good china. I like do everything.
Thank you, Tim. So, Eleni, I think this is part of time when we can do a call for questions.
Yeah, I have a couple questions that came in to me. The first one is for Lisa. What is your advice to students who are struggling with self-doubt, who are faced with completely new routines during this time?
Wow. Okay. I'm automatically thinking of a student as someone who's younger, but I probably shouldn't do that because a student could be any age. I think that if you're feeling that way, you may be a person who is possibly more extroverted, because people who are introverted, and I was just talking to my son about this, they're introverted and they have found that they've been doing better this semester because they don't have to go out and interact, and they can completely focus on the work and being creative and being with themselves. And then, you know, my husband is an extrovert, and extroverts, like what Tim was saying, you need people to talk to, and you get your energy from interaction with others. And one of the memes that I remember seeing on social early on in this was, check on your extroverted friends, they're not okay. So I think if you are experiencing that, finding a way to be social, even if it is FaceTiming and speaking to someone. Sometimes when my husband goes to put out the trash or something like that, he'll be gone for like 20 minutes. And it's because someone else came outside and, you know, he got to have a conversation with someone that he doesn't live with. And again, just, you have to keep reminding yourself, this is not normal. You've never been through it before. There is no right way. There is no wrong way to do it. And it will pass. It's not going to be exactly what it was before, but it will pass. And just take it day by day. I have stopped trying to figure it out. Just stop.
Thank you. That was so great. This question is for Tina. How can we stop comparing ourselves to our peers and their successes, especially during this time when finding new job opportunities and internship opportunities is especially difficult?
That is such a good question. And I really take that to heart, because I think that is, especially with, and Tim, this sort of speaks to what you said, and Lisa as well, to what you said in both in different ways, which is, you know, based on sort of our industry, which is all outward facing, all about appearances, and not just appearances, how we look, but how the brand looks, or how the founder or the celebrity behind all the other celebrities. Like, it's all about what things appear. And it's so hard right now to pull yourself back into a place and get grounded on all of that doesn't matter. All of that is noise. I have to connect with where am I in this moment in time, in this perfect space, and not go beyond that. And I think, Lisa, you're speaking to this a bit, which is that whole idea of, you know, your mind running and looking sideways and comparing. How is that helpful to you? And it's like exercising. You just have to pull yourself back, notice it, forgive yourself, and then come back to like, where am I in this moment of time? What can I do? And honestly, stay busy. Like, even if it's you're looking for a job and you're not getting anywhere, then turn your attention to a task that will make you feel good. Like, I love to clean. When I get nervous, I clean. I get a sense, I'll clean that drawer. I'll clean the kitchen cabinet. And it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you feel good about yourself. And then you start feeding the good feeling about yourself. And then you tackle something a little harder. Like, maybe I'll, reach out to 10 friends and ask them to help me find someone, make one connection. This is a great tip, by the way. I think, Jody, I said it on the podcast with you, which is every conversation, ask someone for help. And it can be ask them for 3 people that you need to know, whether it's to help you in your career or help you emotionally, or just be someone that could be good in your network. Like, ask for help. This is a time people are feeling very generous of spirit, and I think more willing to give.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Okay, and the last question is a little bit fun for Tim. What inspires the looks you have been creating on your Muse during this time?
It all depends on the day, honestly, and the mood. I don't know, like sometimes I wake up and she's like a living Barbie doll to me right now. So, I plan her outfits and I plan to look around the outfit. It might be like, last week I was missing Milan, so I was inspired by the fresh roses in Italy. Then I've been talking with friends in Venice, and like, it depends. Zsa Zsa Gabor came up because I made her into that for Halloween, so I figured why not pull that costume out again. It's just being playful, people get a kick out of it. And then some days it's just, all right, we're gonna polish silver today. So it's whatever is, I don't know, right? Lisa, I think you said it right. Like, I don't know what the right thing to do is, but I feel like at least whatever you're doing, you better enjoy it, because I know I'll be complaining in 3 months when I have to be on a plane every other day,
It is so true. My daughter woke up this morning pretty late and she comes downstairs and she says, "Happy Sunday." I said, "Sweetheart, it's Monday." She was like, "What? What? Oh my God." I was like, "Relax, just go with it."
It doesn't matter.
I am so grateful to all of you. Like, this made my heart like real flutter, and I feel so positive, and it really did the trick. This is like my gratitude list via Zoom, right? Like, I learn from all of you. And your honesty is so meaningful to me and our fans, for sure. So thank you so much for joining us today. This is so fantastic. We recorded this, so we'll put this on our Instagram so everybody can enjoy it. And an email will go out to all of our attendees. And Tina, we need that prayer for that email.
Yes.
And thank you all so much for your time. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
Bye.